Switching over now onto our YouTube side of things. If you are looking for Trey Lyle, unfortunately, I am not him. I am Brian Timothy Dale Nolen. Trey Lyle will be hosting Bringing the Heat with Bryan Nolen this week. I am filling in for him on this week's edition of Happy Hour. You know Michael Massie. You know Dalton Hopkins. But we have the lovely Grace Woelbing. If I said your last name wrong, I am so sorry. But she is from Speed Sport. And Michael Massey, we were talking about different ideas for this segment. And you had a fantastic idea. Share with our viewers what we're going to be talking about this evening.
Well, thank you for complimenting my idea. Like all my other ideas, it is fantastic.
Yeah, it's debatable.
But
let's not kid ourselves here.
My thought is, AJ Allmendinger, the thing everybody loved about that race, I would argue the only thing people loved about that race was that after he got out, he's just crying the whole cool down lap, screaming it sounded like a dog whistle with him screaming on the radio afterwards. But he gets out and then gets interviewed by NBC and he breaks down again, just saying you don't know when it's gonna be the last one, and then he runs into the crowd. Just huge emotions from Allmendinger. It was beautiful to see that kind of just raw emotion. So it got me thinking, what is your guys' favorite emotional win? The most emotional win, you've enjoyed the most watching NASCAR over the years?
Let's start with our guest for this evening. Grace, the floor is yours.
Well, originally I was going to go back to when I was younger and watch NASCAR. I think we were talking about this a little earlier. I was a big Casey Kane fan. And so his first win was obviously a big deal. But talking about AJ Allmendinger and him running into the crowd, it reminded me of earlier this year at Charlotte when Ryan Blaney did the same thing after winning the Coke 600. And I thought that was so cool because of the Indy 500 earlier that day and just Newgarden doing the same exact thing. And I just thought it was so neat with that. I mean, historic accomplishment of, Team Penske sweeping both of those events to then have Ryan Blaney run into the crowd. And because I was there for it, I think I'm going to go with that one and say that was just a cool day in general. And it was just really neat to see Ryan Blaney's emotion. I mean, he's not very emotional in general, but I mean, even he was emotional in victory lane that day. So to see him run into the crowd and then to see him, be emotional after breaking his winless streak, I think I'm going to go with that one. Actually, I changed my mind.
Fair. Dalton, I think you're going to take mine, but I'll give you the floor anyway. So what is yours?
You know what? I'm not going to take it. I'm going to let you guys have it because I thought of another one that I feel like is a little bit more emotional than, well, you know what? There's a couple choices that you guys might pick. I don't know. So I'll go with a third choice. How about this? So 2011. I know what two you guys are going to pick, right? But this is from a personal standpoint. So 2011, I am watching the duels for the Daytona 500, and I noticed Trevor Bayne pushing Kurt Busch and vice versa. And I tell my mom, and I'm like, Trevor Bayne's going to win the Daytona 500. And she's like, what are you talking about? There's no way. And I'm like, nah, he's going to win the Daytona 500. He's going to do it. And look, I was very young at that point. I was only 13 years old when that happened, but I had a very strong feeling that Trevor Bayne was going to win the Daytona 500. Lo and behold, he comes out and he actually does it. Nobody was as surprised as me, but nobody was as satisfied either. And to watch the Wood brothers come out and win the Daytona 500, and Trevor Bayne, this young, unsung rookie who really nobody kind of knew to win the biggest race of the year in all of stock car racing, to come out and actually win that race was such a huge deal to me. And I still think that that's in the top 5 of Daytona 500 finishes. I know there's another one that you guys are going to pick for sure, but I feel like that Trevor, that one win, every time I see the highlights of that win, I just get a little bit emotional hearing Darrell Waltrip say, "Happy birthday, Trevor Bayne, 20 years old."
Happy birthday, Trevor Bayne, 20 years old.
20 years old. Like I'm 6 years older than that now. That's young to me. That's a kid to me. Like, I cannot believe that somebody that young won the Daytona 500, but that's Trevor Bayne's legacy, and that's always going to stick, and that's always going to be a part of Wood Brothers Racing as well, among their many other Daytona 500 wins.
I watched that race in a nursing home, not taken care of, but I was with my dad's dad, who was like 102 at the time, and he was just complaining how they were wasting all these tires and wasting all this gasoline, and he was going on and on. I just wanted to tell him, like, shut up, but I got to be nice and appropriate. No, I remember that just because of where I was, but it was still a fantastic time.
He was still an old man the previous time.
Oh, yeah.
The previous time the Wood Brothers won the Daytona 500,
Mm-hmm.
like 60s or 70s, I guess. But okay, so for mine, I'll throw out a couple of honorable mentions first. I don't think I'm gonna step on Brian's toes. One of them I think is obvious is after the Hendrick Motorsports plane crash, Jimmy Johnson wins the next week. And
that's not what I was thinking. Well done.
So that's an honorable mention. I'm not gonna pick that as the one. Just
never mind. You're gonna take it.
That was a cool moment though. Just everybody at Hendrick in Victory Lane with their hat backwards in honor of Ricky Hendrick, who passed in that plane crash. That was a cool moment. Another one was after JD Gibbs passed and Joe Gibbs Racing ran 1, 2, 3 in the Daytona 500. That was another great one. But the one I'm going with is an Xfinity race. 2020. Chase Briscoe versus Kyle Busch. Days after Briscoe's wife had a miscarriage and publicly announced it. And Briscoe goes head to head. He's just an Xfinity regular at the time. And outduels Kyle Busch, the greatest Xfinity driver of all time, and wins at Darlington. And just the emotion, just him breaking down and getting down on one knee after he won. It was just a great finish. Just those last 2 laps or so were incredible to watch. 2 of the best at Darlington you'll ever watch. But the emotion afterwards from them, from Briscoe, was I think that takes the cake, because it's rare for a moment like that to get me a little choked up. That one got me a little choked up watching it.
Wow.
So. That was such a deep pool, but fantastic pool.
Great pick.
Yeah, I mean, mine is awful now, but I'll say it anyway. I just finished high school, I think, 2014. No, you idiot. 2014, which is even crazy because it's almost my 10-year anniversary of my graduating high school. Anyway, not the point. Daytona 500. It was a rain delay coming back, and then Dale Jr. takes the lead, and I grew up a Dale Jr. fan, and I'll never forget watching it. I don't think I've ever cried during a NASCAR race until that moment when he came off of turn 4, and I just lost my mind. There were some serious onions in the air and something, and just the joy that he had. It was I just picture it, and it's just so awesome. I'm pretty sure he also joined Twitter after that. And that was even more, and Dalton is starting to get tense and everything. I'm so sorry, Dalton. Do you want to talk?
Are you kidding me? How did neither one of you, Brian, you know what? Finish what you're going to say, because I'm going to roast you afterwards. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
I think what you're thinking is what I thought Brian was going to pick, so I wasn't going to say that.
Well, I was just thinking this because I remember it and I have a story behind it. But go ahead, roast me. You do it every week. Might as well do it in front of me.
How did nobody choose the 2001 Pepsi 400? Are you kidding me right now? How did nobody choose Dale Jr. winning the Pepsi 400 right after his father was killed at Daytona International Speedway earlier that season. And then there's the second one that I know Massie's thinking of right now, which is Dale Earnhardt winning the Daytona 500 in 1998. How did nobody pick that?
Those were all
We all
before
wanna
we
be
were
obscure
born, though,
ones.
Dalton.
What?
Those were all before we were born.
I mean, I was 5 when the
No,
second
Matt,
one.
you were born before 98, okay? I know that, all right? Just stop, all right? Just stop.
Nassie's the old man out of this.
You were watching and a fan of NASCAR when Dale Earnhardt won the Daytona 500. Tell me I'm wrong.
You won't.
No comment.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. Yeah. Can't believe neither one of you guys picked that. I deliberately chose to not choose those because I knew you guys were going to pick those. Unbelievable.
But we want to hear from our YouTube viewers. What is the best emotional win that you guys have watched, react, and share your comments below on this video. With that being said, another edition of Happy Hour is in the books. Last but not least, Grace, thank you so much for coming on and promote your social media handles and then what you're going to be cooking up for a Speed Sport.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys again for having me. My Twitter is just at Grace Woelbing. Same with my Instagram, which is really where I'm most popping these days. Up next for me for Speed Sport, a lot more dirt track stuff. We got the World Finals coming to Charlotte in November here. So we're going to be doing a little bit of sprint car coverage and heading from asphalt to the dirt. So yeah, thank you guys again for having me, and thanks.
Massie, Dalton, I'll see you next week. I'll be hosting with our boy, Mr. Big Hoss. We call him Jared Hoss is going to be cooking it up in the kitchen with us. But anything you two are cooking up on the interwebs of frontstretch.com.
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to see you in a couple days.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I'll see you on Saturday morning.
Vegas Motor Speedway.
Hey, my man.
Both of us will be there. So, yeah, and then you can look for, I'm going to write a Fire on Fridays column this week on the Front Stretch. So look for that. And, yeah, look for all our content this weekend in Vegas.
I will not be at Las Vegas. I will be in Savannah, Georgia, drinking and having a great, wonderful weekend with my girlfriend, Claire. So
shout out Claire. Shout out Claire.
She is listening to this somewhere in her office right now.
Shout out Claire.
You, Claire.
Thank you.
Thank you for actually listening. Although I gotta force her to listen now. I gotta tell her to listen now. But if you want to follow me, though, I am at Pit Lane LT on X, not Twitter. X at Pit Lane LT. That's at PITLANE LT on Twitter/X. And thank you for following. And check out more of my Front Stretch content. I just released a column on Thinking Out Loud about the Roval. It's super interesting, I thought, because I kind of give a unique perspective of why the Roval should stay and why the Oval should not be the fall race for Charlotte. But check that out when you can. And thanks for listening to the Happy Hour podcast. Thank you so much.
For Grace Woelbing, Dalton Hopkins, the buffoon we call Michael Massie. I am Bryan Timothy Nolen. Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Happy Hour. We'll talk with you next week with our guest, Mr. Jared Hoss.